And that is my short film on the crisis of rushing game development. Rushed game development. That's when a big company exec is like, oh my god, what do we do? We want to get this game out, but we also want to have our employees be suicidal. What do we do? And they're like, hey, what if we rush the game development cycle by like 1 year and give them no holidays and no free time? Oh my god, that's a great idea. And that's where we're at right now. I'd say the biggest offenders when you talk about video games, or video game companies rushing out these games and having really short development cycles, I think of EA, Ubisoft, and CD Projekt Red. EA and Ubisoft, they both kind of have the same syndrome of releasing games every single year, and just constantly flooding the market with mediocre games. Assassin's Creed, FIFA, that kind of shit, you know? Alright, but you gotta admit, they've gotten pretty good at this whole rushing out game stuff. Okay, of course the games aren't good, right? But they've kind of perfected the formula of releasing garbage, like consistently releasing out garbage on a yearly basis. Because they've done it for so long. They're used to bringing out a new FIFA or a new Assassin's Creed every single year, to the point where it's like, it's just the norm for them. So they have a system where they're good at reusing assets and stuff like that to release it yearly. So it's not as bad as certain other companies, so I'll give it that. Alright, but when you think of rushing game development, what most people think is the sad truth of reality, where most game companies, or at least a good chunk of them, they take their employees and they work them way harder than they should, like 70-hour work weeks or some shit like that. And then they just keep crunching them for the holidays because they want to get that sweet holiday revenue, They want to get that sweet Black Friday revenue. And then they do that shit where they just fire them at the end of the year. And that's not even an exaggeration. That is what happens a lot of the times. They just fire them all at the end of the year after they've done their job. It's a horrible cycle. And CD Projekt Red, the guys make Witcher and shit like that, they're pretty notorious for doing that shit. Nintendo, I want to talk about Nintendo, though, when it comes to rushing video game development, because they're really, really weird with this stuff. They're like the Two-Face of rushing game development. It's like, hey, Batman, heads or tails? Heads, I'll rush this game out in like a year. I don't give a shit, it's a Mario sports game. Or tails, I delayed this game by years and years and years, and I'll throw out the assets midway through because it's not up to par. Which one do you choose? Or they can just, release it normally. But it's weird how much they switch between that Two-Face kind of mentality of rushing games. There are 4 games in particular that I really want to talk about, and I think each of these games, in their own way, highlight a different aspect of what comes from a game when it's rushed. And the first one I want to talk about is Super Smash Bros. Melee. Now, I don't really need to talk much about what makes Smash Melee special. Because everyone knows about the competitive. It's crazy how even after 18 years, it's still this big, and how people are still finding new things about it. Even now, big players like Hungrybox or Leffen or Mewtwo King, they can still rack up some decent views on Twitch or YouTube. But yeah, Melee only had a development cycle of, 13 months? That's crazy to think how big of a game it is with such a little development cycle. A lot of what makes the competitive great, and don't get me wrong, the competitive is still great with the core mechanics that were intended. Sakurai did a great job improving after 64. He removed a lot of the hit stun to make combos a lot more, fast-paced. In general, the movement was a lot quicker and snappier, but there was a lot of stuff that's in the meta that actually was pretty much completely unintentional. Like Ice Climbers, the whole reason they're viable in the first place was because wobbling is basically a glitch that allows the Ice Climbers to do an infinite off a grab. Also, a lot of things that Fox and Falco can do with the shines, the shit that's famous in Melee. The little Toriat, no, wait, that's not that. Wait, shit, that's the wrong sound effect. The little blip blip thing, that's what I mean. A lot of that, like double shines and triple shines, that's based off an exploit too. A lot of what makes Fox and Falco top tiers, and based off shines, there's even shine mines, where you can actually set up a hitbox on the other side of the map and then set it off later. I don't know the specifics how it works. I'll probably play a clip of the video here, but yeah, you get the point. A lot of what makes Melee great is actually based on exploits we've found over the years. But I felt like I wouldn't give the game due diligence if I didn't actually go and play the game itself. So, I've decided to emulate... Ah, damn it. But yeah, by using completely legal ways of emulation, I was able to play Melee online. And I was like, okay, you know, it's Melee. I've played Smash before. I got like 7 million GSP on my mains in Smash Ultimate. This can't be that hard. It's just wave dashing, go like blip blip, one side, two side, you know what I mean? But yeah, I was completely wrong. I've played over about 50 matches, and I think I have a total of 3 hours on my computer saved of gameplay just of playing online. And I swear, I won only one match. And that was me playing as Dr. Mario against a Jigglypuff. It really opened my eyes. Melee really is a really high-skill game. Like, I don't know shit about L canceling or wave dashing or shine mines or wobbling or short op aerials without having to press the jump and the attack button at the same time like in Ultimate. I don't know. And that's crazy, you know? That people are this good at it and able to consistently perform these actions with just no difficulty whatsoever. But here's the thing, I don't think Melee is a masterpiece of a game. It definitely isn't. The biggest thing that stands out to you is the major imbalance in the roster. I mean, if you're playing like some S or A tiers like Captain Falcon, Fox, Marth, you know, you'll be fine. But you really do see the divide between it and at like a mid tier or a top tier. And good luck playing with like that bottom half of the tier list. It's just impossible. Like I tried playing Bowser or DK. I tried playing both of them and I was just completely outmatched. Like at least when I was playing Dr. Mario, I was at least able to, you know, take out a stock or two, right? Without having to know like the major basic mechanics. But with Bowser or Donkey Kong, you're just shit out of luck. You can't do anything. Like you're just getting juggled. And my foxes with their shines are just getting spaced out. Also, there's basically no like good single player content. I mean, there's like adventure mode, and then there's classic mode. That'll keep you occupied for like an hour, I guess. And then target practice, that's the one good thing. That's the one really good thing, I'd say. Training mode is pretty bad too. There's a lot of little things. Also, one thing that really bugged me, I noticed that literally all of Luigi's voice lines, they're just Mario's. They didn't get Charles Martinet to just, you know, record some Luigi lines. It was that, so because they were in such a rush, they didn't bother to get any new voice lines. They just reused the ones from Mario 64. Also, you guys ever notice how weird Donkey Kong's model is? He looks malnourished. He's so skinny. He has no muscle. That's the thing in general. Melee's art style is really weird in my opinion. I feel like 64 had that nice retro feel. It's kind of timeless in its own past way. Ultimate and Smash 4, they got pretty good art styles, I guess. It's standard. Brawl was kind of weird how they went for a kind of realistic art style. Melee's the one where I feel like it just looks off or outdated. Like, some of the models are fine, like Mario and Luigi's, that's normal, I guess. Then there's Donkey Kong. He just looks... Ugh, why is he looking at me like that? Why is he got this weird face? And Bowser's kind of weird too. He's got some weird skinny ass legs. And then Kirby, he doesn't look very plush. He looks plastic almost. That's the thing. Yeah, a lot of characters have that plastic kind of look. But yeah, that's how I feel about Melee. It's a great game, but don't get me wrong. But you can really tell that rushing it, kind of set it back in a lot of areas. But at the same time, the glitches are kind of what makes Melee Melee. And that's the kind of thing that I feel like it highlights about rushed game development. That sometimes glitches are just fun. Melee's the best case in that scenario. You know, usually glitches they're just kind of like there. They don't bother you too much. Sometimes they can be game breaking. Melee's the best case. It was incredible how the glitches just happen to just enhance the meta like that. But yeah, I think Melee highlights how glitches from a rushed game cycle can actually be kind of fun in their own way. It gives the game like a unique flavor. The next game I'm going to be talking about is probably my least favorite out of the bunch, and probably also my least favorite game of all time, and that's Pokemon Sword and Shield. Now, I get some of you guys like the game, and I'm happy that you do, right? I really am, because I'm glad someone had fun with something that I despised. But I'm sorry, I hate that game, dude. And I think it's a perfect example of the consequences of what happened when you rush a game. This is, I think out of the 4 games, this is easily the one that shows the most bad that can come from rushing a game. But yeah, easily my biggest complaint with this whole game was how they cut out over half the Pokemon. Even though all the way back in like 2013 when Pokemon X and Y was released, they said that they'd future-proof the models for the Pokemon. So that means that it would be easier for them to import them into the new game. Because, you know, there are a lot of Pokemon now, so they future-proofed it so it'd be easier to import. They were saying, like, all the way back in 2018, that, hey, we're going to redo all the models, and that's why we can't have all the Pokemon there. They completely lied about that. They did not redo all the models. They just updated them for the Switch resolution. That's it. Like, the animations are pretty much all the same. And they said they were working on quality animations, and while I will admit there are some new effects for some of the moves, there are no new animations for the Pokemon themselves. And even then, there's just a lot of little things with the animations, like Blastoise doesn't shoot out of his cannons, or Charizard shoots out of his chest, you know? Like, just little things like that. Moves don't line up with the certain appendages like they should, which is annoying because they did that all the way back in the GameCube era. I think Pokemon Coliseum, the guys who made those games, they were great at animation, and there are a lot of videos that they're complaining about how terrible the animation quality is. And also the graphics, those are pretty bad too for a AAA game. Not just a AAA game, from the biggest media franchise of all time. Yeah, that's right. I'm not exaggerating when I say that. Pokemon is the biggest media franchise of all time. Pikachu is like the Japanese Mickey Mouse. But yeah, unlike Melee, where it actually benefited from some of the flaws that came out of it being rushed, Sword and Shield is a clear example that usually 99% of the time, rushing games is not a good idea. Like, if we're talking just from a purely artistic standpoint, like, there was no good that came from Sword and Shield being rushed. If you gave it a lot of time, I think it actually would have been a good game. That's the thing that frustrates me even more. Rushed games like Sword and Shield, they clearly had so much potential, right? Because there is good stuff there. Like the soundtrack, that's pretty good. The character designs, that's pretty good. And it just makes me sad knowing that there's people at Game Freak, right, who are trying, but they're being rushed because they need to meet the holiday season, and you know, because Game Freak wants more money than they do actually good games. Also, I got a question for you Twitter artists. Back when it was live streaming, like the announcement, so were you guys just waiting there, like just for like a character reveal, and then did you guys just like go straight to drawing Rule 34 of them? You were just scheming in the backgrounds in the chat, right? And then the moment a girl shows up, you just get your pen and paper out and just go like. But yeah, but now, this is the game I want to talk about the most out of the four. The best game out of all of these, and I think this game in general is an inspiration to game development, and because these guys did an amazing job with developing this game in such a short time, and that's Majora's Mask. Seriously, Majora's Mask, I still find it so hard to believe that they developed that game in a year. Alright, flashback to the late 90s, right? Ocarina of Time just came out, and it's doing numbers. It's revolutionary. You know, it's a new standard for storytelling, all of that, right? And Nintendo, they want a sequel, right? But the thing is, they have a short time to do it, right? They want to get it out pretty fast. So what Nintendo does, right? The developers for Majora's Mask, they have to reuse all the assets, right? So for all the characters, they had to reuse the assets, right? To save time. And on paper, that sounds horrible, right? Like, oh, they're just using all the same character models, right? That's just them being lazy, and they're not even thinking. Here's the thing. They somehow made all of that work. When they reused all the assets, they made that work. By you reusing all the characters, right? It didn't feel like, oh, we're seeing the same old characters again. They just didn't bother to make any new ones, right? It adds to this game's dark tone, right? It's creepy, but also at the same time familiar, right? And happy. That's how I can describe Majora's Mask. Creepy, but it's still those feelings of happiness and from the characters, right? Because like, yeah, they look like the characters you knew from the last game, but they're not those characters, right? And sometimes they can act a bit similar, but they're still not those characters, right? It gives you a feeling of familiarity, but it still feels creepy. And that's what the whole game feels like, right? Ocarina of Time was kind of creepy, right? It had its moments where I'm back and forth in time, right? And seeing all the horrible stuff. But this game, I'm surprised it's rated E. I'm surprised it's rated E. With that whole theme of dealing with grief, all of Ikana Valley, Darmani not being able to pass on because he feels guilty about not being able to protect his tribe, the Zora mom and her, having her egg stolen, and her being like so depressed that she can't even speak, the Deku Butler's son being dead, all of Skull Kid's backstory, and the Happy Mask Salesman just straight up choking out Link. I love all that dark stuff. The reason why I bring up Majora's Mask, right? It's not bad like the others. I'm not bringing it because of its flaws, because I don't think there's many flaws that came from its development cycle, only good, and that's what I want to talk about. I think it's a perfect example of, you know, how actually rushing a video game, right, and giving your developers limited time resources, right, in that way, if they're really good enough, it can actually encourage creativity. When you don't have everything available to you, and you want to make a good product, that's what you're forced to do. And honestly, I think it's pretty inspiring that they were able to do what they did with Majora's Mask and make it such an amazing game. Maybe I'll talk about it later on, but not in this video. I can go on and on about it. Alright, but yeah, now I've talked about Majora's Mask, right, which is a masterpiece, right? I'm going to talk about the worst game. I know I said Sword and Shield was my least favorite, but I'm talking about the objectively worst game, and that's Sonic 06. We all know how bad that game is, dude. But yeah, we all know how much of a buggy, unfinished disaster it is, alright? Just any gameplay footage of it, you're bound to see just some horrible glitches. I probably couldn't even name them all if I tried. But even though it's worse than Pokemon Sword and Shield in a way, like at least with the games I talk about like Melee and Pokemon Sword and Shield, right? They have flaws when it comes to their development cycle, but when it comes to a game like Sonic 06, right? At that point when it's so bad, the more flaws the better, you know? Because at that point, people aren't there for the actual game quality. At that point, you're just there to laugh at the game, alright? You're not there to actually enjoy a real gaming experience. You're just there to see how much the game can screw itself over. And in that way, Sonic's pretty good at that, I think. Well guys, I guess that's the end of the video. Thanks for watching, and also can someone please call 911 or my mom or something? That bit at the beginning, that wasn't a bit. I know I said it was a short film for the video, but I'm sorry I lied. That was actually Wario kidnapping me in real life, and he's forcing me to program Wario Land 5 or 6. I think we're on the 6th one, yeah. And I don't even know how to teach. He just gave me this book on He just gave me this book on learning to program with Minecraft. It's not even the same like language, coding language. I don't know what he wants me to do. But anyway, guys, 1,000 subscribers by the end of the week, or Wario's gonna execute me while I sleep. Bye.